Abby, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Just enjoying the summer, trying to get back into a routine of training and honestly get away from the game from a little bit. It's nice to just decompress and get some family time. So it's always exciting. You start to get that itch to get back on the ice a little bit, but that little brief period in between where you need to get away is kind of nice. So just kind of enjoying that right now.
So when I texted you to come on, you said you were going on a week. Was it a weekend golf trip or like a
Yeah.
few rounds in a row? What was that about?
Yeah, I got a buddy here who manages like you basically take a bus out to play Kananaskis, play both courses, and then come back. So a couple hockey guys, mostly just oil guys, and a bunch of guys. I try to play as much golf as I can around here because it's once you get into skating and training, it gets a little exhausting with the little one too to get on the golf course too. So try and play as much as I can here before we get too busy.
Yeah. That's therapy for you, kind of? The
That is
legs?
therapy for me. Yeah, get on the golf course. My wife is due right now, and we got another baby coming in October. So once number two comes, it's going to be a little bit harder to justify leaving to go play golf. So try to get as much in as I can this summer.
And
Yeah.
did you prefer Kid or Lorette?
It's a good question.
Two beautiful courses. Like,
They're both gorgeous. I'd never been out there before. I would say probably Brett was probably my favorite, but I mean they're both great.
good answer. Good answer. Yeah, no, that's completely fair. And then besides that, like obviously just strictly kind of family time. We know you're from Regina, so you obviously have some family back in Regina. Do you have family back in Calgary as well, or you kind of go back and forth in the summer?
So my family moved here when I was 15 to Calgary. Dad's job got moved. Everyone made it here. So my wife's from here. Her family's from here. And then all my three siblings all live here. My parents live here. So I have a little bit of family in Regina, not a ton. Just home base now is Calgary, though. We've been here for about 15, 16 summers. So I love it here. You can't beat it. You got the mountains so close, and Stampede's always great. And I've had a ton of friends I've made over the past years just living here too. So I love it here.
I feel like that's common across the board with people that either move to Calgary or spend time in Calgary. They're so Calgary proud. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
think of like Greener always. I mean, I know he ended up moving, but he spent a lot of time in Calgary. And then
yeah.
like Darren Helm's wife's from Calgary, and they always talk about how awesome it was. So you guys are all Calgary proud, eh?
Yeah, we like it here. The summer, I shouldn't say the summer. This spring has been awful. It's been raining and windy, and I don't know how it is where you guys are, but it's just been horrible. But the summertime is usually pretty hot. You can't, because the weather's consistent. Like I said, you just can't beat. My wife and I, we love going hiking. We go to the mountains. We go to Banff and
Yeah.
Canmore to do that. And just the setup we have here too, we love it. So we can't beat it.
Yeah.
All right, Abs. So we're gonna go back. I was telling Ty this before we started. I was like thinking of questions to ask you, and I was like, I wonder like how Ebs's like experience was with like minor hockey, like growing up. And I was like kind of on your Wikipedia page, and I hadn't scrolled down yet. And I was like, I wonder if he struggled ever, if maybe like hockey wasn't always what he wanted to do, whatever. And then it was like 216 goals through 60 games in novice. I was like, hey, well, maybe I don't know if that's a good question, but we're gonna ask it anyways. So you played novice in Regina, then you went to Notre Dame, and that was where you got drafted to the Dub, and then you stayed. Where did you go after that? I don't know. I don't know where it was, but did you ever have like those thoughts of like hockey wasn't it? You had other interests. I mean, you played because you grew up in Canada, but like talk about your experience
Mhm.
at that age.
Well, I mean, it's really young. Like you go back to novice, we're 10 years old. Hockey was my thing. I loved playing hockey. It's hard to, say how like, I always felt like I had like an edge on everyone. It felt great. I mean, at 10 years old, I was getting asked to go and play in travel teams with like Boston. Like they'd ask me and Steven Stamkos and Travis Hamonic. And I used to travel a lot, played like summer hockey. I just loved hockey. I mean, at that time, you don't really know how good you are. You always want to make the NHL, and that's in the back of your mind. But more so than anything, just enjoying it. Played Atom hockey, Pee Wee. once it was kind of funny for me. Once I got into about like Bantam or Pee Wee, everyone grew, and I didn't. I stayed the exact same size, and hockey got a lot harder for me. I mean, I was always able to, I was skilled and finesse, and I was always able to get around guys. But once everyone grew, and especially in 2003, 2002, like I remember the Bantam draft, how they do it in the WHL. It was all about how big you are, and
Yeah.
I remember I went to Notre Dame as a 14-year-old. I think I led my team in scoring, had a great year. And like these guys on my team are getting drafted like way ahead of me. Guys, I was like, I thought I was better. Like that really stung me. I remember that was the moment for me that was like, oh man, like, it really angered me, but at the same time, kind of motivated me a little bit. Like I wanted to prove everyone wrong. So I got drafted 7th round in Bantam, and ended up, I think if it wasn't for the fact that I got drafted to my hometown in Regina, I would have went a different route. I probably would have went a college route. I was always pretty good in school, but got drafted in my hometown and grew up watching them, and ended up making the team out of camp, which I think shocked a lot of people. I don't think they had me on the radar as a 7th round pick to make it as a 16-year-old. But I just always use that as a fire. But I remember going back to like 13, 14. All these kids are so much bigger than me, and definitely had some questions in my head of like, I used to be this good of a hockey player, and now I'm, almost feel like I'm regressing. That I remember that really, really hit home for me as a young age. But I almost used it as motivation. I think if I look back now to prove people wrong, and that size didn't really matter. It's nice to see kids now that they're drafting a little more about skill rather than size. So especially at 14, it's hard to compare. Some kids, hit puberty later than others, and you don't really gain that size.
Yeah.
And also, like, let's be honest, growing up in Regina, it's a little bit gritty. Playing in Humboldt and making it down to Wilcox and making it down to those areas, like it's tough. I can imagine when you were growing up as well. I mean, that's tough hockey. That's tough farm boy hockey. When you get discouraged looking back, was there some specific people, specific individuals in the game, in your family that really allowed you to help find your continued potential, even though you were down on yourself a little bit just with this, 7th round pick and this and that?
Yeah. I mean, I've had coaches along the ways. To my dad for sure. I mean, he pushed me hard, but he pushed me in a positive way that I think he saw potential in me, and more than anything, he saw that I wanted it. He saw that I loved the game, and he pushed me towards just trying to get better and motivating me. And my mom's always been there to help me. And my siblings, I have a really good family base, and I have 3 siblings. There's 4 of us, and we're 5 years apart between all of us. So we're very close in age, and we're close in friendship and relationships too. So they've kind of been my rock throughout everything. Whatever thing's been tough or easy or whatever it may be, they've always been there for me. So that they're definitely the people that I lean to when things get hard.
Yeah, especially like it's not hockey with siblings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just easy to just go around them. I know, like for my sister and I, like it's just like we can be goofy, you can just be yourself, you can let the guard down. So that's nice.
Exactly.
You have that. Yeah. So like knowing you now, I mean, I think like the one thing I love about you, Ebs, is like you're well-rounded. I mean, we bond over guitar, music, and then like you're just a well-rounded person, other things about other sports, and I love that. Like, is that something that started at a young age for you? Like I think like at Notre Dame, do you have to play other sports as well as hockey? I think I remember Schwartzy saying that.
Yeah, you do. They make you play another sport. I played baseball, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm a strong believer. I think kids get really cooped up now and just playing one sport. And I shouldn't even say kids. It's more so parents. They're just they're pushing their kids to be as good as they can. They have skills coaches at like 10, 9, 8 years old. I was a really good young player, but I stopped. Hockey was done for me once I hit, I think spring hockey ended in maybe early April or first week of May. And after that, it was baseball for me. I played lacrosse, played a little football, played school volleyball, like golfed a lot. Like I did a ton of things. And I think for me, it was important to get, not so much for me, it's important now that I see it, that kids get into different things. I mean, I think you just become an all-around athlete, and not only that, but you get a mental break from hockey. I think the worst thing you could do is push these kids to just playing hockey 24/7, 12 months of the year. You get burnt out. And, now that I play professional hockey and for, 12 years, I always, we were just talking about it. It's a long season. And we obviously didn't make the playoffs, and it's a grind. And, when you don't make it, obviously it's tougher, it's harder mentally because you're not, you don't have that playoff coming up and that extra spark of getting in, but you need that break at the end just because you get burnt out. So I think for me at a young age, other sports were huge, and I've always enjoyed that.
Yeah, same thing with me. And I think even like you look at Wayne Gretzky, like buying into that new NLL team in Vegas. Like I think it's so impactful to be able to garner some new skills from different sports. Like lacrosse, I looked forward to lacrosse. Like that was something that I honestly enjoyed doing. As soon as hockey finished, like I knew that lacrosse was around the corner. And it's nice because you're in with a new group of people, and you're also just like, you're starting to perfect newer skills that you can also kind of translate into a different sport. And I definitely wanted to touch on, playing in Regina and playing in Wilcox and having that home base and having that foundation. I mean, talk about like how, when you look back, I mean, you had it, this was the best you could have ever probably asked for, playing at home, having your parents and family in the crowd at all times. Was that something that, you almost wish that you could have played somewhere else? Or is it a case of, I just love my family and this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me?
I think for me, it was the best possible thing that could have happened for me. I think I touched on earlier that if I would have got drafted to a different junior team, I think there's a very good possibility I would have went the college route. I grew up watching the Pats. It's funny. I've never been to an NHL game as a spectator to this day. I've only ever gone. I mean, I've obviously been injured and sat in the press box, but I had never been. My first NHL game I ever went to was the one I played in, and I grew up a diehard Pats fan. I used to be. I remember I did the kid that skates around before warmups or for the old Canada stands. Like I did that. I was a big Pats fan. I remember where I sat. So to play for them was like a dream come true. That was like making the NHL for me. So, and I got a chance to play in front of my home crowd. I know a lot of kids who, I mean, she maybe can probably touch on this a little bit better, but kids that get away at 16, 17 years old and they have to go live with a billet family. It's tough. And a lot of these billet families to them are their second families, but it can't be easy moving away at that young age. So I was lucky even when I went to Notre Dame at 15 or 14 that I was still close to home enough that I could go home on the weekends and see my family. So it definitely made it a lot easier for me.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I don't know, like, I don't think there's any other sports that take the kids away so young, Like,
yeah, maybe like soccer.
Yeah. Like if you're going to like an academy or something, or it's crazy though. Like, I mean, we spoke about this a little while ago with one of our other guests, with Aaron Ambrose, and just like that idea of like the homesickness and things like that shit's real. And it's like, it's pretty like traumatic at that age. So that's good. That's good. You got to stay home. Did it make it any like more difficult once you jumped to go play in Edmonton or to move away?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think by then I was 20 years old. I'd like to think I was a little more mature and at probably a better age than 14. I mean, the time that goes from 14, 15 to 20 years old, those are huge years in your growth, right? So, by the time I actually got to Edmonton, I was, I'd like to think I was a little more mature, even though I look back on it, I definitely wasn't. But enough to be able to take care of myself away from home.
Yeah.
Please tell me you've been to a Riders game since you haven't been to an NHL game.
many Rider games. I got a watermelon head downstairs.
I was just about to ask. Yeah, I love that.
It's huge out there, right? Like Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. Like I remember seeing crowds of them, and it's equivalent to NFL.
I always kind of compare it to college football because I've been to a couple college football games, and it's the passion that people in Saskatchewan have for their football it's incredible. I think I saw a stat one time that the merchandise sale in the CFL, like 60% of it is is just riders. Like they control the market that much. I don't know if that's true. I think I saw that one time, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
All right, Abby, I feel like this is one area where you get asked about a shit ton. And I'm going to acknowledge like your World Junior performances. And I've read TSN top World Junior player ever. So props to you about that. But in all honesty, like Ty and I, like we talked about like growing up, like World Juniors is like, I still remember to this day where I was when you scored that goal with 5 seconds left. And like that's like peak excitement towards hockey, I find. And so I guess like, I don't want to ask you like, how'd you feel in those moments? Cause you get that a lot, but I just like how close do you hold those accolades to your heart, knowing how important Canadian World Junior hockey is to kids growing up and even beyond your childhood? Like I still watch it to this day.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the Pats, like my Christmas vacations were planned around World Juniors. And I'm sure I'm no different than a lot of Canadian kids. Like we grew up watching the World Juniors. Christmas time comes on, it's World Juniors. Like it's a religion almost in Canada. So obviously you dream of playing the NHL, but I dreamed of playing in that tournament too. My memories of it was like Grand Forks with Sidney Crosby and the team that like went undefeated. Like those teams to me were that's like what I remember. So to get a chance to finally do it and then do it in Canada was I got to play both of mine in Ottawa and Saskatoon. Saskatoon, obviously my home province. Like I got really lucky. And then obviously to tie it up the end of the game there, like, I mean, those are at the time, I think when it happens, you're just excited to score and keep the boys going and you get a chance to win still. I mean, what are we like? We're 14 years past that now. Like, I think when I'm watching World Juniors now and they still have the clip of it, like it gives me goosebumps. Like I don't think you really understand, like it doesn't hit you personally how big it is until like later on, you know what I mean?
You try to like normalize it. I feel like I've never scored a big goal like that or big, but like, I just feel like it's like when you talk to someone who has, they try to normalize it as it wasn't as big of a deal as it actually was, but it was fucking huge.
Yeah. It's for sure the hottest topic. Like when I meet someone, that's all they want to talk about. So
you'll let them know. You'll let them know too. Yeah, that was me.
I do really enjoy. I think anyone who's played with me, I love when December comes around because I tell the boys to get me the puck. Obviously, I like to like jokingly feed off it because I think it's for me it was just such a cool thing to happen, and the fact that we got to win the tournament and move on, and it was just it's one of those things where I mean I couldn't have been more happy of how it played out, and for me personally. I would never say I was a first round pick later first round, but like that kind of gave me the confidence to just, that you can play with the best at that tournament and really help me catapult myself into the NHL. So I always say that tournament for me was the turning point in my career from the moment that I, felt like I had a really shot at making the NHL to be like, okay, I can be an NHL player.
Yeah.
And then we always like to touch on, well, I personally do just because I never got drafted or anything, but I always like to touch on like draft day. Obviously the tying goal was a huge moment. It just even the World Juniors to begin with was a huge moment. Compare it to draft day. Do you know that you're going to Edmonton? Obviously I think you kind of have said it and you're just dreaming of playing in the NHL and just getting this opportunity. Kind of talk us through that day.
Well, I was rated like late first, early second. So I was really hesitant to even go to the draft. I was really scared that I was going to go there and not get drafted the first day because obviously the first round is the first day and everything else is the next day. So my agent kind of talked me into it. I knew the Oilers had the 22nd pick and I grew up an Oiler fan. Like that was my team. So I was like, I'd met with them 3 or 4 times. I knew they had quite a bit of interest. And honestly, it just worked out perfect. That was the team I really, really wanted to go to. They were obviously my favorite team, close to home. It was perfect. I think when you get drafted, it's almost like a sigh of relief. You're like, oh wow, I did it, And then you can ask Sheezy, like, you get to your first NHL camp, and for me, anyways, I remember skating around. I'm like, I am nowhere near ready for this. Like you understand, like getting drafted is just like the first step. The next step is attempting to make the team. And then the hardest part of it all after that is trying to stay in the league. So It's obviously an accomplishment, but it's just really the first stepping stone. And for me, it was like a wake up call once I got to my first camp. Like, I'm nowhere near ready, and I need to work my butt off to try and get to here.
Who else would have been at your first camp? Like, who are some
of the guys? Yeah, like
Yeah.
Sheldon Surrey, and I mean, guys I play with too. Like, ended up playing with like Horkoff and Alex Hemsky, Dustin Penner, Dwayne Rollison. There was quite a few guys. And I literally remember going into my first camp, my first exhibition game against Vancouver, and I'm like, I'm not ready for this at all.
Yeah, you talk about the jump from playing with like in the dub with like the Regina, like, and then it's probably that on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump to like you make it to the NHL. I mean, you've found early success, right? You kind of jumped in your second year. You're an All-Star. Then you had the lockout. I feel like when you came into Edmonton, it was at a time too, like I guess after your first few years, you're getting all these high-end young players.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe weren't putting it all together as a team, like no playoffs, coaching changes, pressure playing in Edmonton. Like, I guess, like when you look back and now you left Edmonton as like you had a good amount of games under your belt. Like, what did you take with you from all of those, kind of putting all those pieces together and trying to figure it out? You end up making the playoffs your last year, but that's kind of like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, first off, I was lucky enough to jump into a team who was really in the rebuild mode. The year that I made the team, they drafted the first overall pick, that was Hall. So they were really committed to, rebuilding. And I was in a situation where I was lucky enough, I mean, I got drafted to them. I was able to jump right in and make the team. Whereas, maybe if I'm with the Detroit Red Wings organization at the time, like I'm probably in the minors for a number of years, right? So you always, I mean, you get that opportunity, and I kind of ran with it. But that being said, I was given the opportunity. So I was getting minutes early as a young kid, and a lot of guys don't get that. And that obviously helped me build my confidence and build everything into where I am now. But the first few years, I shouldn't say the first couple of years, we weren't a great team, but the fan base was kind of patient just based on the fact that they knew we were rebuilding, and they obviously saw we had some young talent. I was more so just happy to be in the NHL. I was smiling, every day was like a gift, Once you get into your third or fourth, fifth year, it starts to get a little bit, you start to get a little anxious and a little impatient that we're not winning. We have all these first overall picks. We got guys that are playing, but we're not winning hockey games. Fan base is starting to get on you a little bit. Like, those are the times that it starts to hurt, because we want to win just as bad as they do, and when things aren't working, it's, you take that to heart. It's hard going out for dinner in a city that loves hockey, and people are coming up to you asking about why the things aren't going well, and you're trying to have dinner, but at the same time, you feel that pressure. So, the last few years was really tough. I would say once we finally made the playoffs my last year, I was so excited that, we finally had earned it and we made it. We won our first round. And for me, more than anything, it was just disappointing that I had such a bad playoffs. I just did not play well. I don't know whether it was just my first playoffs, I was trying too hard or what it was, but I just did not play well at all. And ultimately, that's probably what got me traded. But, I look back at my time in Edmonton, and it was obviously, I loved it based on the fact that I was an Oilers fan growing up. I love how passionate the fans are. I love the city of Edmonton. I don't think there's a city that really, but they can be critical for sure. And I've felt that side of it too. I mean, social media kind of came in at the time of 2013 2013ish, and I was 23. I'd gotten it. And, it was a tough time. And there was one point where I just had to get rid of it because I just couldn't deal with the backlash that you're getting of not playing well. And I put just as much pressure on myself to perform. And when you add that on top of it, it was hard. So, but it comes with the territory. And I always said, if you could win in a place like that, like, it just makes it that much worth.
And dissect it a little bit more, even you got Taylor Hall, you got Nuge, you got this young core. How, I guess, valuable were those relationships to you guys, just to have that core? Because, considering the talk and everything that's going around in the city, I'm from Leduc, so I know how tough Oilers fans are. And I just want to know, is it a case of you guys are all young guys and you can just rely on each other? Or is it a case of, you feel as though I guess, the oldest of the group to kind of take the not the burden, but make sure that these guys are doing good as well? Like, was that exhausting?
It was nice more than anything to just have guys to go through the journey together. I mean,
Yeah.
Halsey and I lived with each other for 4 years before I finally moved out, but just to have a guy to go through, guys like Nuge, Halsey, I even consider Justin Schultz, and then later on like McDavid and Draisaitl came in. Guys that you're young enough that you're able to experience these experiences together because, you're in a city that, I mean, it's there's a lot of history when it comes to hockey with that city, and people expect you to do well. And when things are good, I always say when things are awesome, it is amazing. Like the highs are really high and the lows are extremely low. So it was almost it was such a weird change for me to go to the Long Island right after that, because it was just like a happy medium all the time. Because I'm not saying the fans didn't care, because the fans were just as passionate as they were, but there's just so much more going on in New York, like with the other sports teams or everything else, that there wasn't so much emphasis on hockey, where in Edmonton it was hockey 24/7. So you were able to get away from the game a little bit easier, which was nice. But I can say firsthand with my time at Edmonton, like I said, when the highs were awesome, it's the best place you could be. But when things were bad, it was a battle zone. So you got to try and at a young age, I mean, especially, I shouldn't even say young age. Young age, it was easy because I was just almost happy to be there. But once you got into the point of feeling the pressure, that's when it really started to hurt.
I just listened to a podcast with Brett Eldridge. You appreciate Brett Eldridge being a big music guy, but he talked about the same thing in like the music industry, and it makes so much sense. He said like when he went down to Nashville and he started coming up with song after song, he said it was like Disneyland. Like he was living in Nashville, living his dream. And then after the first album came out, after he had like sold out shows and everything, then that's when he got hit with all of this pressure and anxiety and stuff, because now it's like, now I have to make these albums equivalent to what I did when I started.
For sure.
And the success is hard to be consistent. So you go to the island. You kind of move into a team that's trying to find its way to where you get there, and you didn't make playoffs. But then after that, it seemed like things clicked. I remember playing against you guys back then, and it was always a challenge. And I mean, you had Barzal come in as a young player, and then you had like obviously Johnny and Anders, and like it felt like when you played against the island, it was a group of like leaders, like good people. I know we've talked about your time there a bit. Like just talk about not like which one was better or worse or anything, but like what you took from the island, because I feel like you went to a team that was just a good fit for you, and kind of a team that had a lot of chemistry.
Yeah, well, I think chemistry is the perfect word. My first year with the Isle, we had a very skilled team. Johnny was still there. We started really well. We ended up missing the playoffs, but we had a really tough time keeping the puck on it. But we could score with the best of them. The next year, Barry Trotz came in with Lou Lamoriello, and the emphasis was basically on defense. But more than that, I think, I mean, they obviously put the system in place and the culture, obviously, that Lou brought. But more than anything, I think the credit to the guys. We had a really veteran team, a lot of really older guys that really just bought in. It didn't matter whether you were on the first line or the fourth line. You had to block shots. You had to play the right way. There was a lot of emphasis on little things and details, and like face-offs, winning face-offs, and not even so much about scoring. I really didn't feel pressure as an offensive guy to put the puck in. I felt more pressure to block a shot or get the puck out in the D zone on the wall. That's the pressure that I felt. So, and we had guys that bought in, and not only that, but we got along off the ice. We had a really, really tight-knit group, and we won by committee. That's how we beat teams. I think if you ask anyone who played those teams from those three seasons, that we were just hard to play against. We made it difficult each night, and that was kind of our mentality. If we can keep games close and play well defensively, that we're going to have a chance every night. So, I think the first year we swept Pittsburgh in the first round, and that kind of surprised everybody. And then we lost to Carolina. We got swept by them. But then the next 2 years after that, the bubble year, and then the year after, obviously making it to the conference finals, and we lost both times to to Tampa Bay in 6 and Tampa Bay in 7. So I know I always give it to Gordy about, she scored in game 7. I'm like, because, you look at the teams they played after, who knows what would have happened, but you'd like to think you would have won. So those are always stung. But those teams, I know you probably know, anytime you win with a group of guys, you always it's just like you create a bond with them, and you go through that experience. And those guys will always be close to them just based on the bond that we created through winning, and really not even so much winning, but how far we made it and losing. That's what stung, but it also, brought us together.
Obviously, physically, you're at a point in your career where you understand your capabilities, you understand your potential, especially playing in Edmonton. I mean, it's very, I guess at that time, offensively driven. You come into the island. My question is more centered around the mental aspect. You have all your years, all the pressures in Edmonton. You come into the island. Were you at a place mentally where you just felt like a little bit more free and a little bit more like, you know what, I understand what I can do physically. So let's focus on the mental side and let's make sure that I'm just being the best I can for my teammates at this point.
Oh, for sure. It took a little bit of time, especially when Barry came in, to find my game within his system. I still wanted to score every game and be offensive, but it took me a little bit of time to figure out, like, there's little things I can do that are going to help us win just as much. And I finally figured out how to buy in, and that's kind of when I found my game within the Isle. And then I started to excel. It kind of happened around playoffs. So, and then obviously the years after that. But yeah, it took me some time to, I'd like to think that he helped me get into a more of a two-way game. I figured out that making plays on the walls and blocking shots and this and that, and not so much cheating for offense was going to help us win. And those little things are what really come down when you get into playoffs and game 6s and 7s. Like, those are the little things that turn series around. So you want to be as consistent as possible to do the right thing so that the puck's not going into your net. And he helped me with that. So it took me some time to figure it out, and figure out even more than that, just figure out how to play in the playoffs, because I had such a bad time in Edmonton. So, and I would say the Long Island was an easier place to do it because, you didn't have those highs that were so high. You didn't have those lows that were so low. It's kind of more of a even keel along the line. So it made it easier.
I think that's such like a important thing for kids to understand too, like what you just said about learning the small aspects of the game. I think we've talked about this before. We might have talked about it with Colby Armstrong, but like just that idea, like when you come up as a scorer and like you came into a team where it was a rebuild, so you were given a little bit of leeway offensively, but like for a lot of kids, like I think about someone who comes up through Pittsburgh, like where if they're a centerman, they get drafted as a centerman, and then you have Sid and Malkin as the top two centermen, and then you don't know how to check, or you don't know how to take faceoffs, or you don't know how to kill, you don't know how to do those little things that you spoke about. Like, it's hard to stay in the league. So I guess if it's just given a little, I don't know if you can build off that, but like a little piece of advice for kids coming up, like really focus in on those little things you just touched on, that wall work and stuff like that.
Agreed. Like, as a winger for me, it's funny, I didn't put a lot of emphasis on it as a young player. I worried about scoring and getting points, and I'm sure most young guys are like that. But it took a while to figure out. I mean, there's other aspects of the game, and obviously I can individualize myself as being a winger, like making good wall plays to get the puck out, like, and that's just moving the puck forward, or figuring out how to get angles to be a good F3, not pinching at the right time. I mean, there's times to obviously cheat for offense if you're down late in the game or whatever, but I've tried to turn myself more into a more responsible player and somebody that, Barry could trust to put me out there. So, and as you get older and the speed or whatever starts to fade off a little bit, you need to rely on your hockey sense and your smarts and parts of your game that you have to do if you want to stay in the league. So, I've tried to try and gain myself an overall game. Don't get me wrong, I still love scoring goals and creating offense. That for me, that's hopefully going to be always number one. But you always want to have another part of your game that coaches can rely and trust you, that you can put you out in every situation.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it, Ty. You got it.
And then, like, I mean, we talked about, Edmonton come third, fourth year. That's where it gets tough. Long Island, obviously it's probably not a sigh of relief, but a refreshing start for you. Then the pandemic hits, and, it at some point, obviously, I think for me, it felt like, two steps back again, we got to start over. Riley has mentioned multiple times that you were a big family guy. Riley has mentioned, and obviously you just mentioned that, as much as hockey is, your life, at the end of the day, there's still, an other part of your life as well. Was the pandemic a situation for you where it was a case of, okay, let's just focus in on, being the best husband, being the best human being I can be away from the rink? It doesn't have to be about hockey right now. And I guess my direct question is, what did you approve upon during COVID? Was there a particular thing you approved upon, or?
So COVID for me was kind of a blessing in disguise. It really was. My daughter was born about 4 days after the season got postponed. So we were in New York, and we had a home birth, and literally it was my wife, myself, and our daughter for 3 months by ourselves in New York. Like, it was awesome.
Can we give Lauren a quick props for what you just said? Right?
I mean,
you too, but all her. Like, from what we've talked about, like, she's a beast. I know Quiche absolutely, like, just follows her like the advice that she's given Quiche, and then her story with everything she does. So just a quick shout out.
The knowledge that she has, the amount of time and effort that she puts into reading books and just about childcare and just I'm the secondary parent, that's for sure. But as far as hockey goes, when season ended, like, it was awesome because I got to, I mean, you're gone every second day in hockey, and more than that when you're on the road. Like, I got to be there every single day for the first 5 months of my child's life. Like, it was amazing. Like, it's funny that I was there it might have been 4 months, but then the bubble came, and then I was gone for the next 4 months. Like, I was there very early every day, and then I was gone every day. So it was a weird dynamic, but it was awesome that I got to be there every day, to just be with her, start to get to know her, get her to get to know me. So for me, it was such a blessing in disguise to have COVID end the season at the exact same time my child was born. So it worked out well, and just learning how to be a dad, learning how to, and it really, as you know, right, like, when you have a kid and then you go back to playing hockey, like, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform and do well. And, a lot of the times that stuff comes home with you, like you have a bad game, and that's always been my issue, is that I bring it home, and, the next day or the day in between the games, like, you're trying to be there, but you're not present because you're thinking about things that have gone on. And when you have a kid, it helps to put things into perspective. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I still do it, but it helps to put things into perspective as far as being able to put the game aside and understand that other things are way more important. So that's really the thing that I've loved the most about being a dad.
Yeah. What's your favorite, like, just off the top of your head, this is a hard question, but when you think about, like, what brings you joy about being a dad, like, what sticks out to you about your relationship with Collins?
Oh, for sure. It's like, with hands down, like, when you get home from the road or workout or whatever, and she, like, runs over and gives you a hug, and, like, that part for me is, like, the greatest part. So you have this person that, like, cares that much that you're coming home. So I'll say it makes it that much harder to leave. So it's like a two ways, but it's I've loved my experience as far as being a dad so far.
And where does Collins come from? Hold on, I gotta ask. Like, where does your name come from? It's a beautiful name.
The name Collins? That's a great question. I don't know. I think we heard it somewhere and just liked it. I think I heard it in a movie. That was in The Blind Side. I think the daughter's name was Collins. And
yes.
We put it in our list, and I was like, you know what? I don't know how you guys did it or with your kids, but it's just, for me, we had like 5 names. It changed sporadically as it got closer, and then eventually we're like, all right, this is it. So I think that's where it came from.
That's awesome.
What a movie.
Okay, so quickly just touch on time in Seattle. Obviously it's been only a year. I mean, I think we can both agree, like, just the energy towards a new team. Was that something that, like, was maybe, like, on your radar about, like, getting drafted in the expansion draft, or because you were drafted, like how did you find the city and just the first year there?
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, I didn't really have the draft on my radar. I didn't think it was a possibility. And then you're not protected, and all of a sudden, boom, you're like, oh crap, this could happen. I got to be honest, when I got picked originally, I was disappointed. I was in a situation on Long Island where we had, been in the conference finals back to back. I'm like, we got unfinished business. And this happens. It took me for a whirlwind, but the best thing I did for sure was go to Seattle when the expansion draft happened and got to see just the passion of the fans, the arena, everything. And I was like immediately fired up to go there. Got to see everything about it, the fan base. I can really, in short note, like I can say that my time there so far with 1 year it's been amazing. My wife and I, we love it. We love the city of Seattle. We love, she's able to do her hiking and being closer to home, and how beautiful the city is. The fans, for me, the facilities, like everything is amazing. It's been first class. And obviously in the position that we're in as far as the standings, that was really hard mentally, just coming from a team that we were, we're getting old now, and you're losing years to win the ultimate. I mean, you want to win a Stanley Cup. So, but the passion that the fans have to be able to win for them, like, it makes it worth it. So hopefully we can just continue to build and build and build and get better, and get to that point where we want to be.
Yeah. To second that, like being a losing team and being out of the playoff race pretty early, like, I think of like the game we played Detroit, like pretty late, where we won.
Yeah.
I forget what the score was, but like that's one of, like, for a regular season game, like I put that up there for some of the loudest fans and some of the best atmosphere. And we weren't playing for anything really, right? Like, so I mean, I've always heard that about Seattle sports fans, like with the Seahawks and even the Mariners, the soccer, like the Sounders, like. So we give a lot of credit to the fans if anyone's listening.
They're amazing. They're honestly some of the best fans I've had to deal with, and just the support that they've given us, So hopefully we can just keep getting better and start winning some games for them. Because I think it was that game in Detroit. I remember coming off the ice and we were in the room, and I'm like, boys, can you imagine playing in playoffs here? Like, I was like, this would be awesome. So, that's obviously the goal we want to get to.
Yeah.
And we got to touch on music. We've talked a lot of hockey. I was able to finally make it down to Seattle. Riley and I had a little live event, and I went to the, I hope you've been to the Museum of Pop Culture, Ebs.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
great.
Like Riles hasn't went yet, but it was like just to see the Seattle music scene. I was completely blown away. But I want to touch on, your love for music. I know for me, golf is very therapeutic for me as well, but it can be emotional. But for me, like even just, heading out for a walk and listening to whether it's, Zach Bryan or Drake's new album, whatever it is. I mean, I honestly just love getting lost in the song, in the lyrics, whatever it may be. Where does that stem from for you? Like, was there a particular person in your life that really, garnered that love for music for you? Or was it just a case of, you just appreciate sound?
Well, I think there's a couple people. My dad is an amazing guitarist, played in bands. But it's funny, when his kids were born, I'm the third kid. I don't remember him playing a lot. He kind of put it down, and then it wasn't until, later on, once we were like 24, 25, I started to see him pick it up again. I would say most of it stems from my wife. She's a music teacher. She teaches singing. She teaches piano. For my 22nd birthday, something like that, she got me a guitar, and it rained for like 3 weeks in a row. And I was like, I'm going to learn this thing. So I started playing it, learning it, taught myself, and eventually just got better and better. And it became something that I just did. I got home from games. I played guitar and kind of brought me down a bit. And then, just became more and more passionate about it, and her and I started playing like Riley and Keish, like she'd sing because I can't sing a lick, so it just became therapeutic almost. So I've always loved music. I just never really had any musical talent, and then as I started to play guitar, I still don't really have any. I'm a rhythm guitarist, but I just love playing and enjoy strumming it. And then that is definitely one of the cool aspects of being in Seattle. My wife and I went as Kurt Cobain and Ashley. I can't remember his wife's name at the time, but we went as that for Halloween. So we love music. It's going to be a big part of our lives and my daughter's and hopefully our future kids' lives too.
So I didn't even know this. Keith just showed me that. Is it Sticks and Strings or Strings and Sticks?
Yeah.
Is that you guys just started that? Talk more about that, because I didn't really get the whole. She just was kind of explaining to me, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so we just started a foundation in. I mean, obviously my wife's taking the lead on it, but it's called Sticks and Strings. Yeah, so we're just starting. We just started this year. I think we actually today actually is the first event. Lauren has a yoga session outside with some people, but we're just going to start slowly and continue to build and just try and raise as much money as we can. And all the money is going to go towards, for me, obviously, the two things in our lives that has been big is music and sports. So just getting kids into that. And I know my wife is really involved in Kids Who Explore too, which is just getting your kids outside and hiking
That's awesome.
and getting them active. So those are kind of the three things that are important to us. And obviously you get into a stage in your career where we've had so much given to us that we've started to give back. So started a foundation and literally in the midst of just bringing it to light.
That's awesome. I love that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So kind of just tying that in, I think like what you said there, but like what we've kind of hit on with music, getting outside, sports, why Ty and I started this, like the mental health stuff, just being kind of on your game when it comes to your mental health. And we've spoke about this before, and just, I think quickly before we finish up, I mean, we've shared the same life coach and we've had talks on the bus or whatever it is, just how we're feeling. The importance of having someone to lean on, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a life coach, sort of as your career has gone on and you've sort of figured out that it's a positive tool for you. Just maybe speak about the importance that you find in those conversations.
Yeah. And like you touched on, you and I have worked with the same guy. Honestly, I wish I had it years ago. Some of the mental abuse, not the mental abuse, but the mental stress that I've put on, not on myself more than anything, of just the highs and lows of this game. I mean, it's funny. You dream of making the NHL, and once you get there, I mean, it's so hard to stay in the mix and be at your 100% every single day. That, I mean, it takes a toll on your personal life. It really does. And I think we touched on it before. For me, it's always an issue of bringing the game home with me. I just care and love this game so much and want to do well that it started to put a burden on my relationship with my kid, my relationship with my wife, because I really was not present when we'd be spending time together. And I just needed to fix that. And having someone to speak about that with and find ways to get around it is just, it's huge. So, when you're happy at home, it puts into your game. It makes it so much easier to play that you have everything in check. So, I think I really love how, the game's made a turn for that way. And as far as it's become more of people are talking and more open about, problems that they've had. I mean, obviously some guys are bigger, some guys are easier, but I mean, I look back on my career so far, like I've had it easy for the most part. I've been in the NHL for the most time. I haven't had the hardships of going up and down through the American League and having to move and with your wife or whatever it may be. But it's still hard. There's times in when you're away that and not only that, but I mean, how it is. You get your circadian rhythm of sleeping at different times throughout the night. Like you can get pretty moody. So I think it's just important that people stay on top of it and they find ways to try and keep themselves at an even keel balance, because if you can do that and enjoy what you're doing, it's going to increase your performance. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And like whenever I do a speech, somebody always comes up to me and it's like, what works, like help me out, like what works. And I think my question to you is, what works for you? I guess, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's healing is different. Everybody's growth is different. But I mean, for Jordan Eberle, to separate yourself and find that solitude in the balance of, hockey, family, life, what just works for you?
Oh, it's 100% just being able to talk about it. For me, I kept so much inside as far as how I was feeling, and I wasn't even able to share with my wife about how last night's game was awful or this or that. And just when things aren't going well, just being able to talk about it, be like, hey, I'm not feeling good right now about how things are going. I'm sorry, I'm not being present in this talk right now, or if we're at the park, or I'm not being present. Just being able to catch yourself doing it, and to the point where now hopefully I'll be able to get to a spot where that doesn't bother me anymore. I'm able to just be open with it. So just having the courage to just talk about it and work through it together, because when you find someone who wants to help you and get through it, it makes it easier for yourself to get through it. So I think, like I said, if you're able to speak about it and not, there's always, I think there was that stigma years ago about, you just be a man and hold it in and not talk about your feelings. I'm glad that that's finally starting to move the other way, because like I said, it's a tough league to play in physically. It's an even tougher league to play in mentally. We put so much pressure on ourselves to perform and win hockey games, and then you have on top of that social media beating you down. That if you're able to find people in your inner circle to basically take some of that load and express what you're doing, and then you find a way to joke about it or be happy, and then you're back to square one. I think that's what helps you in the long run.
Yeah. And I think too, like, we're relating this all to hockey, but like it goes hand in hand with whatever you're doing. Like you could be in the business world, you could be literally doing whatever. But like, I think what you're saying is just spot on with anybody, in that just being able to express yourself. And it's unfortunate, like you said, like when we came in, it wasn't as, you couldn't really speak about it, but there also wasn't as many like external, like whether you're comparing yourself or whether you're like wishing you were somewhere else and all these things, like there wasn't as many elements that were kind of making you think in a different way. And I think now, like you said, with social media, constant comparisons, the pressure of just money and whatever it is, it's a little tougher now. So you hit the nail on the head there. Ty, I think you got to ask them, just to wrap up, your favorite
My famous question. Yes, absolutely. Okay. You get one artist or band and you get to pick where you get to see them, dead or alive. Go.
Oh, this is so easy. I think he's gonna know I think he knows who I'm gonna pick. I'm just trying to think of where I want to see them. Okay, well, the answer is Nickelback. I've seen them like 10 times. Yes. I love Nickelback. Yes. I love Nickelback. They're my favorite band. I think where I want to see them would be like Wembley Stadium, if they could pull that off. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's Ty
was
just did a speech in Hannah, Alberta. Yeah, and the lady who organized it, she's like, yeah, I used to have Nickelback like playing in my garage before they were Nickelback, and then she like whispers to me, she goes, they were shit.
It's funny, I always get made fun of for being a Nickelback fan, but like I put the music on, everyone loves it, so I'm like, everyone knows them.
I know Ebbs has the iPod or whatever. I know he has the music when I hear Nickelback come on, and I love it. But as having an American wife, she doesn't know that like Nickelback, like she just like jumps into that, like, oh, Nickelback's like, you got to make fun of them. They're one of these Canadian things that you just got to make fun of. But like, it's the same thing. We put it on and she's like, oh, I know this song. But,
you can't put on This Afternoon and not create a good vibe in the group.
Yeah. I think I told one of the young guys one time on my team that my wife actually walked down the aisle to Far Away like by Nickelback, and they were like, you're lying. I'm like, I'm dead serious. This is how much I like Nickelback. And she likes them too. So I mean, it wasn't the actual song, it was like a string quartet of the Far Away, but it was beautiful.
That's awesome. Abby also had probably the song of the year, putting it on before we go out for warm-ups. It was like a live version of was it Welcome to the Jungle?
Welcome to the Jungle, yeah.
But like the beginning of it, like all of a sudden we're in the locker room and we're like, this is like right kind of close to when we're going out. You just hear him go, do you know where the fuck you are? And he goes like, you're in the jungle, baby.
Come on. Yeah, it was awesome.
And then it goes right into like the guitar riff, and like we all shot up. We were like, let's go.
Oh well,
No, that was
honestly,
good
we
stuff.
can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure. Congratulations on the foundation. That's amazing. I'm sure that gives you a lot of, just love and appreciation for something different. And I think, there's a lot of people that work in the foundation space that have just the most amazing hearts. And I can imagine you and your wife are the same. So props to you for doing that. I think it's, the youth is a very important piece of our world, and to be able to take care of them and give them some space where they can, find some love and something different is amazing. So props to you and your wife.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Riley and I sit basically beside each other on the bus, so we have a lot of talks. But I love what you guys are doing. I think this is a important piece for the game and moving the game forward and moving, just people forward. And I know we always recognize everything towards sports because we're hockey oriented, but I think the mental health part of it in hockey and specifically is just, I'm glad that people are starting to talk about it, and I think it's just going to make the game better and make it better for everybody.
All right, Ebs, thanks a lot for joining us, buddy. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.